She called the cops and screamed, "Arrest him. He's trespassing on my property." But I was standing on the land my grandfather left me. The same land I had the legal deed for, tucked safely in my truck's glove box. The officers paused, unsure, while she stood tall in her designer heels, pointing at me like I was a criminal. I didn't shout back. I just stared at the massive villa behind her, $6 million of polished stone, glass, and arrogance, sitting on the very soil that belonged to my family. My chest burned, not from fear, but from the thought that this woman thought she could erase decades of history with a single lie. "You can't even afford this neighborhood," she hissed, her lips curling. "So stop pretending this is yours." The neighbors peeked from behind their curtains, whispering. She wanted a scene, and she was getting one. But what she didn't know was that I had something she couldn't buy, proof. "Funny," I said slowly, locking eyes with her. "Because last week, the county office confirmed the opposite. This land was never yours. Not 1 inch." Her smile faltered, just for a second, then returned sharper than before. "We'll see about that." And that's when she pulled out a folder, thick with papers, and waved it at the cops. "Here's the HOA ruling. His claim is invalid. I'm the president. I decide who lives here." The officers leaned in to read, and for the first time, my stomach sank. Because right there, bold letters stamped across the top read, "Eviction notice." But I never signed anything. And I never joined her HOA. Something was very, very wrong. The cop flipped through her papers, nodding slowly like they actually meant something. My fists clenched at my sides, but I forced myself to breathe. Losing my temper was exactly what she wanted. She was smirking, already tasting victory. "See, officers. He's not even supposed to be here," she said sweetly, lowering her voice like she was doing them a favor. "The HOA voted unanimously. His claim is invalid. You can remove him now." Remove me from land my grandfather farmed. The same land where I learned to shoot, to ride, to fight. I finally stepped closer. "Show me the signature," I said. Her eyes flickered, just for a split second, and then she snapped the folder shut. "You don't need to see that. This is official business." One of the cops looked at me, half sympathetic but hesitant. "Sir, do you have any proof this property is yours?" I smiled, calm, because I was waiting for that line. I walked to my truck, pulled out the dusty old envelope, and placed the original deed in his hands. "Proof enough." The cop studied it. His brow furrowed. The seal was intact. The signatures clear. It was undeniable. But before he could say a word, Karen snapped her fingers, literally. Snapped, and 2 men in security uniforms appeared from the villa gates. They weren't HOA board members. They weren't neighborhood guards. They were something else. One of them leaned close to her and whispered, but I heard it. "The real sheriff isn't supposed to be here until tomorrow. What do you want us to do?" My blood turned cold. Fake cops. And suddenly it hit me, this wasn't just about property. This was planned. The 2 fake cops stepped forward, their badges flashing under the sun, but even from a distance, I could see they were cheap plastic. Karen tilted her chin high, playing queen of the street. "Officers," she said, voice dripping with command, "do your job. Escort this trespasser out before he causes more trouble." One of them grabbed my arm. Hard. Too hard for any real cop trained in de-escalation. His grip told me everything. This wasn't law, this was muscle. The real officers looked uneasy now, shifting on their feet. One of them whispered, "Ma'am, they're not with our department." Karen didn't even flinch. "They're contracted through HOA authority. Perfectly legal." Perfectly legal, my ass. I leaned in, locking eyes with the guy holding me. "You sure you want to do this? On my land?" For a moment, just a flicker. He loosened his grip, like he felt something in me he hadn't expected. Because what Karen didn't know was that I wasn't just some guy clinging to his grandfather's land. I was Army. Infantry. And I didn't fight overseas. Just to get pushed around in my own country. The second fake cop shoved me in the chest, harder this time. Neighbors gasped. Phones were recording now. Karen smiled wider, loving the humiliation. Arrest him, she ordered again. And that's when I finally spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Funny order. Considering the real sheriff is my cousin. The street went silent. Even the fake cops froze. Karen's smile cracked. Just a little. But the real storm hadn't even started yet. Karen's nails tapped against her folder. As if she could claw her way out of the silence. The neighbors were still filming. The two fake cops frozen in place. And the real officers looking more uncomfortable by the second. Then she laughed. A sharp, brittle laugh that didn't match her eyes. Cousin Sheriff? Please. He's bluffing. This man is a fraud, just like his so-called deed. She spun toward the cameras. Everyone record this, he's impersonating family ties to law enforcement. That's a crime. She was good. Too good. Twisting every word, spinning lies like silk. For a second. I wondered how many people she'd already crushed with that same fake authority. But her timing couldn't have been worse. Because right then, the rumble of a county cruiser echoed down the street. Blue lights flickered against the shiny glass of her villa. The crowd parted as the real sheriff stepped out, broad-shouldered. Calm, and carrying the kind of authority you can't fake. Karen's face drained of color. Afternoon, he said, tipping his hat. His eyes swept over the scene, lingering on me. Then locking onto the imposters still holding me by the arm. Mind telling me why you've got your hands on my cousin? On his property. The grip on my arm loosened instantly. The two men stepped back, stammering excuses. Karen, however, wasn't done. She marched toward the sheriff, holding out her folder like it was a holy book. This land belongs to the HOA, she declared. We have legal documents. He's trespassing, and he's been violent with my officers. The sheriff didn't even take the papers. He just looked at her. And smiled. Funny thing about legal documents, ma'am. They're supposed to come from the county. Not from your home printer. Gasps shot through the crowd. Karen froze, her lips parting, the folder trembling in her hand. And that's when the sheriff turned to me. You brought the deed, right? I held it up. Clear. Untouched. Real. The crowd murmured louder. Phones kept recording. Karen's empire of lies was about to shatter. But she still had one card left. I'll sue all of you. She screamed suddenly, her voice cracking. You don't know who I am. The sheriff's smile didn't fade. That's the problem, ma'am. We know exactly who you are. Karen's face stiffened, her folder still clutched tight. But her voice wavered as the sheriff took a step closer. Karen Whitmore, he said evenly. The whole street now silent. You're already under investigation for filing false HOA notices and impersonating county officials. Today just made the list longer. Her jaw dropped. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The fake cops backed away, their cheap badges suddenly burning holes in their shirts. The sheriff turned toward the real officers. Take the folder. Bag it. And cuff those two. The neighbors gasped again, some whispering, others outright cheering. Phones were raised higher, capturing every second. Karen lunged, grabbing my deed, but I caught her wrist midair. This land was my grandfather's before you were even born, I said quietly. And it'll be my kids long after you're gone. Her face twisted with rage. But the sheriff's hand was already on her shoulder, guiding her back. That's enough, he said, pulling out the cuffs. Click. The sound echoed down the block. Karen's cries filled the air, you can't do this. I'm the president. This whole neighborhood answers to me. But no one believed her anymore. Not after today. The sheriff handed me back the deed. Solid. Real. Mine. You fought for this country, he said, voice firm but warm. No one takes your land, not while I'm around. I looked at the villa towering behind us. $6 million of stolen arrogance. Now nothing more than evidence. Neighbors clapped, some even shouted, "Justice." The humiliation Karen had tried to throw on me had landed squarely back on her. As the cruiser drove off with her screaming in the back seat, I stood in the center of my land, scarred but safe. And I whispered the line that would stay with everyone who heard the story. I didn't serve overseas just to be told I can't stand on my own ground. The crowd went quiet, letting that sink in. Because in America, land isn't just dirt. It's legacy. It's family. It's freedom. And no HOA president was ever going to take that away from me.